Picture this. You reach toward a hot stove, not intentionally, maybe you're distracted, and the instant your skin makes contact, your hand is already flying back through the air. You didn't decide to pull it away, you didn't feel pain, think this is dangerous, and then command your muscles to move. Your body just went. And only a fraction of a second later did your brain catch up with what just happened. So here's the question that should keep you up tonight. If you are your brain, then who exactly moved your hand? This isn't a quirk. It isn't an accident. It's one of the most elegant and slightly unsettling features your nervous system has ever evolved. Your body is running a parallel decision-making system that your conscious mind has absolutely no access to. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. Because the story of your reflexes is really the story of how little control you actually have, and why that's the most useful thing about you. Let's start with the basics, because they're more mind-bending than they sound. Your nervous system is constantly moving information from your body to your brain and back again. Signals travel along nerve fibers, and the brain, sitting at the top of that network, is generally the one making the calls, except sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the system cuts the brain out of the loop entirely. This is called a reflex action, and it's defined precisely as an involuntary response to a stimulus that occurs without conscious thought or control from the brain. The mechanism behind this is called a reflex arc, and the name tells you exactly what happens. Instead of information traveling all the way up to the brain, it arcs back. It curves. It takes a shortcut. A reflex arc typically runs through 5 components: a receptor that detects the stimulus, a sensory neuron that carries that signal inward, an integration center, usually the spinal cord or brainstem, a motor neuron that carries the command back outward, and finally the effector, a muscle or gland that actually does something. Notice what's missing from that list? Here's what that looks like in real time. The moment your skin touches something harmful, receptor cells fire immediately. That signal races up a sensory neuron to your spinal cord. The spinal cord doesn't wait. It doesn't send a memo upstairs. It directly activates a motor neuron, which commands your muscles to contract. Your hand withdraws. The entire arc from skin to spinal cord to muscle is already complete. And then, only after all of that does the signal continue up to your brain, where you finally become aware that something happened. Let that really sink in. The brain receives information about what just happened only after the body has already initiated the response. You are, in a very real sense, a passenger in your own reaction. Your body made a decision, a genuinely smart protective decision, and filed the report with your conscious mind afterward. This isn't a failure of the system. This is the system working exactly as designed. But why? Why would evolution build us this way? The answer comes down to time. In the ancient world and in plenty of dangerous situations today, a few milliseconds is the difference between life and death. If every protective response had to travel all the way to your brain, get processed, evaluated, and then sent back down to your muscles, you would be slower. Dangerously slower. Reflexes exist because they are crucially fast. They protect the body from immediate harm, withdrawing from a hot object, stabilizing your balance mid-fall, snapping your eyes shut before something sharp gets close. But here's where it gets even stranger. Because not all reflexes happen at the spinal cord. Some happen in the brainstem, the ancient, deeply buried part of your brain that handles breathing, heart rate, and your most primal survival responses. And there's one reflex in particular that demonstrates this better than any other. It's called the startle reflex. And you've felt it hundreds of times. That full body jump when a door slams, that gasp when a car horn goes off nearby. That's not a choice. That's ancient engineering running at full speed. The startle reflex is technically a brainstem reflex, a rapid, unconscious defensive response to sudden or threatening stimuli, a loud noise, an unexpected flash, a touch that comes from nowhere. And what makes it extraordinary is not just that it's fast, it's that it is almost completely impossible to suppress voluntarily. Scientists have studied this. People have tried. Knowing the loud bang is coming, telling yourself not to flinch, tensing every muscle, it doesn't matter. The reflex fires anyway. Your body has already left before your mind could say wait, and the pathway it travels is remarkably direct. When a sudden loud sound reaches your ear, the auditory nerve fires immediately, carrying that signal to the cochlear nucleus, a processing hub in the brainstem. From there, the signal shoots to a specific region, called the caudal pontine reticular nucleus, buried deep in the brainstem. This structure then directly activates the motor neurons in your spinal cord, triggering the full body flinch. The entire chain, ear to brainstem to muscles, operates in a circuit so tight, so streamlined, that your awareness isn't even invited to the conversation. Think about what that means architecturally. Your brain, for all its power, all its language and memory and creativity, is not even consulted during these critical early moments. Evolution essentially said the brain is too slow for some jobs. We'll handle these locally. It's like your body is running a branch office that doesn't need to call headquarters for every decision, and that branch office has exactly one priority: keep you alive right now. You've probably seen this demonstrated in its most controlled form, the patellar reflex, what doctors call the knee-jerk response. They tap just below your kneecap with a small rubber hammer, and your lower leg kicks forward automatically. You didn't want it to. You can't stop it. That tap stretches the tendon, the receptor in the muscle fires, the signal loops through the spinal cord, and the leg extends, all before your brain has even registered the tap. Doctors use this test because the integrity of the reflex tells them about the health of specific nerve pathways. A missing reflex, or an exaggerated one, can signal damage somewhere along the arc. But here's the part that genuinely blurs the line between the mechanical and the philosophical. These reflexes aren't just simple muscle twitches. Some of them coordinate complex, multi-muscle actions in a fraction of a second. The blink reflex when something approaches your eye, the righting reflex that keeps you from crashing to the ground when you stumble. These aren't random spasms. They're organized, purposeful, intelligent responses. Organized not by your conscious mind, but by networks of neurons you will never deliberately control. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If your body can take protective, intelligent, coordinated action without you, without your awareness, without your permission, without your input, then what exactly is you in all of this? This is the mid-video twist that changes the whole picture. We tend to think of ourselves as beings who decide and then do. Intention first, action second. But the reflex arc reveals that your nervous system has a hierarchy, and conscious awareness is not at the top of it. Survival is. Your body will always prioritize staying intact over staying in command. Researchers who study the startle reflex have found that it varies between individuals, in its timing, its intensity, and how quickly it calms down afterward. Stress, anxiety, sleep deprivation, these all modulate how easily the startle system fires. People in high-stress states tend to have a more hair-trigger startle response. The system becomes sensitized, lowering the threshold for what counts as a threat. In other words, your emotional state quite literally adjusts the sensitivity of your protective hardware. Mind and body, we like to say, as if they're separate. But the reflex arc makes that distinction feel very thin, and it gets more layered still. With practice, certain trained responses can start to feel reflex-like. The martial artist who blocks a strike seemingly before it lands, the goalkeeper who is already diving as the foot hits the ball. These aren't true spinal reflexes, but the brain has trained patterns so deeply into procedural memory that the response time compresses dramatically. The reflex arc sets the floor for human reaction speed, but training can push your voluntary reactions toward that floor. You can't beat the biology, but you can narrow the gap. Here's another angle that reframes everything. Reflexes aren't just emergency responses. Some of them tell the story of who you were before you were you. Newborn babies have a set of reflexes that healthy adults have long since lost. The rooting reflex that turns the head toward touch. The grasp reflex that makes tiny fingers close around anything that presses into the palm. These early reflexes are remnants of ancient survival circuits. And watching them fade as the brain develops and takes over more control, it's like watching consciousness slowly rise to power, taking authority from systems that governed long before thought arrived. And this is the truly staggering thing when you step back and look at the full picture. Right now, as you watch this, your body is running dozens of these automatic regulatory loops, adjusting your posture, protecting your airway, stabilizing your gaze as your head moves. Your conscious mind, the part listening to these words, considering these ideas, is genuinely just one layer of the operation, not the whole thing, not even close to the whole thing. You are, in a very deep sense, a collaboration between the self that thinks and the system that acts. So let's bring this all the way back. Why does your body flinch before your brain decides to? Because your nervous system is not a single unified thing with one decision maker. It is a layered architecture, built over hundreds of millions of years of evolution, with local processing centers that can act in an instant, bypassing the brain entirely, then informing it afterward. The Reflex Arc is your body's oldest survival program. It doesn't trust the brain to be fast enough. And honestly, it's right. The brain is brilliant, but the spinal cord is faster. And when your life is on the line, fast wins. The next time something startles you, the next time your hand pulls back, your shoulders jump, your eyes squeeze shut before you've even registered why, don't be embarrassed. That's not weakness. That's billions of years of survival engineering firing at full speed, keeping the body alive so the mind can keep doing what it does. You flinched. Your body made a decision. And somewhere, a fraction of a second later, your conscious mind caught up and called it yours. Which leaves you with one question worth sitting with. How many other things does your body know that you haven't been told yet?